This is the Tree of Life, Season 29, Chapter 7. In this episode, we will be talking about the focus as the eye of the soul, controlling the flow of consciousness through the vessel. Each domain entails a distinct in-group juxtaposed to the collective of humanity. Each domain is characterized by a set of hierarchies, sometimes interconnected, sometimes not. These hierarchies establish a boundary, by way of normative rule-making behavior within that domain. That is, these norms sort impulses by domain and by hierarchy, subdividing domains into spaces of reverse substitution and substitution events. In the last episode, we talked about how nonlinearity may sometimes result from two hierarchies, within distinct domains providing a structure which affirms contradictory impulses. These overlaps of opposing priority in the hierarchical flow from vessel to vessel are resolved by way of compulsion, or the compelling of acquiescence within a substitution event. But hierarchical compulsion also produces the stacking of perceptual experiences and proprietary experience channels. That is, in the bifurcation of perception, the perception may be anchored to its vessel, but divorced from its objects of consciousness. Through this bifurcation we see parallel experiences, parallel narratives, occurring simultaneously, within a substitution event. Stacking of perceptual experiences also causes shared boundaries according to the precedence of the higher in priority. These boundaries are enforced by the context length. You must imagine that the attention, or focus of a subject, is like the eye through which the light of common consciousness flows. The level of focus of our attention determines the boundary between reverse substitution and substitution events. Just as we focus the eye, shrink the pupil, to let less light in, to see objects more clearly, so too do we narrow the boundaries of reverse substitution, to limit the flow of manifold consciousnesses into our vessel. In the act of sublimation, what we are essentially doing is shrinking the domain of reverse substitution by narrowing the flow of consciousness into our vessel. The focus of a subject determines the limits on the volume of consciousnesses which may enter the vessel, just as the size of the pupil determines the amount of light which enters the eye. There are obvious benefits to focus, just as there are benefits to limiting the light which may enter the eye. The more focus we have, the narrower the pupil, the more elite is the passage of consciousnesses into our vessel, the more clearly we are able to see an object. In the overlap between two structures in distinct domains, in the compulsion to acquiescence which follows, we see the flipping of phase of a bodily cycle or rhythm. That is, hierarchies close the cycle, while tautological flow opens it. This follows from the fact that tautologies are inherently cyclical, repeating a pattern every so often as they flow. Whilst hierarchies are unidirectional, having the capacity only to flow in a single direction. Hierarchies also determine whether to permit infinite recursion. In our analogy of the eye, just as sublimation brings an object into focus, infinite recursion brings that focus to its totality. Thus, shifts in real-world objects might result from the hierarchical acquiescence to a perfect focus. Sublimation is a filter, because it limits the consciousness that may flow into the vessel, just as constriction of a pupil limits the flowing of light into an eye. It filters out the class of consciousnesses who affirm the impulse which is sublimated. That's the end of the podcast for today.